5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How would you feel defying gravity? Pitch black, no sunlight, floating in space.
Something about the vastness and blackness of space and just just the quiet that's there. It's just really fascinating to me. I always like to say that, just as Moana really liked voyaging the seas and it will not stop calling her, I would say that I'm kind of like that with the space and the sky. It just fascinates me and it's just like calling me.
What would you sacrifice to fulfill your wildest dreams? To land among the stars? How would you cope having to push your body to extremes to do this, all while living with a disease that could shortcut your heart at any moment? On this episode of The News and You, I speak with 26-year-old Neharika Gambhir, who made history as Fiji's first analog astronaut. I'm Elisha Foon, journalist and storyteller. And I've learned everyone you walk past has a story. And that story could change your life. So let's crack it open to discover the news in you.
I like to refer to myself as a Fijian because I feel like Fiji has such a rich history that we've kind of all become one in a sense. But also my ancestors were from India, and the Fijian heritage is like an integral part of who I am because that's where I get my values of community from, resilience, respect for other cultures as much as, ours, and a respect for the environment because we come from a place that is going to be probably one of the first affected if, climate change, sea levels rise. All of that has kind of guided me in a sense in my personal and professional life. And, growing up with Fijian traditions and stories has kind of given me a deep sense of belonging, I would say, in my unique culture.
But growing up and having a stable home was a challenge. Neharika, who was disowned by her parents as a child, and she would often escape through books that her grandfather would read to her about adventures in space, and her imagination would run wild.
I was actually raised by my grandparents. My dad wasn't really there, but my mom was kind of there for 5 years of my life after during the high school period. So she was the one who actually applied for me to go to the US, and I didn't know about this. And then after I got it, then I found out there was zero support from her because there's a very strained relationship with her, because I guess I didn't grow up with her. She does not have that maternal feeling towards me.
She was looking at ways to further her studies and dreamed of moving abroad to pursue a better life and career. Little did she know, her mum had submitted her name in a visa ballot to become a US citizen, a move that would change her life forever.
I kind of found out that I won the lottery, the diversity visa lottery for the US. Originally my plan was to go to Australia or New Zealand, but I kind of got that opportunity instead. So I decided, let me just, come and try it out here. And that's how I came to the US.
Moving to the States was anything but smooth sailing. She moved across states half a dozen times due to unsafe living conditions and unreliable family members, before settling down in Washington, D.C. to live with her aunt and uncle, who provided her with stability and financial support. Something she'd never fully experienced before, a family and a real home.
I came with 500 Fijian dollars, so that's half when you convert it to the US currency. My aunt and uncle kind of stepped up, and they've kind of been my parental figures here so far. And the first step was, of course, having a loving environment and a home. I used to work 3 jobs as a cashier, and I used to work at an Indian restaurant. as a waitress, and then I also used to work at a coffee shop. So my schedule was like 4 a.m. to like 11 p.m. at night. I guess I was kind of on survival mode. I didn't really have time to like feel anything then, I would say. But I was just like so focused on my goals, and then also, getting the therapy, working on my mental health first. So I kind of had to navigate that first. So I had to meanwhile work on getting my degree and getting some sort of a professional experience apart from space. So I went to a boot camp, I studied cybersecurity, and then I got my certifications, got certified, and then I got my first job as a cybersecurity engineer, and then I worked. And then I was finally able to afford an education, and then I started working towards my space dreams.
While she worked towards her dreams, part of becoming an astronaut was to get into flying. So she joined the Commemorative Air Force. It was here she learned how to marshal and operate military aircrafts and fly World War II planes. A Top Gun Maverick moment unleashed.
My work with the Commemorative Air Force, I do get exposed to a lot of World War II aircraft. A bunch of them will fly in all across the country, and then they'll fly formation together, like 4 of them, 5 of them. So they will do aerobatics and stuff. So you get to experience some G-forces.
G's refers to the gravitational force experienced by a pilot during maneuvers. It's an invisible pressure slamming the pilot back into their seat during sharp turns, climbs, or dives. The pilot will clench their calves and thighs and feel double their weight, pinning them to their seat. Fighter jets can push up to 9 Gs. That's 9 times the force of gravity. It's what we see in Maverick Top Gun, where Tom Cruise loses consciousness due to the sheer force of gravity pushing against him. High G-forces can lead to discomfort, vision impairment, temporary loss of consciousness, and can restrict blood flow to the brain.
They put them in there and about 9 Gs at a time, so it kind of helps with when you're being launched and when you're also coming back to the Earth, entering the Earth's atmosphere, because there's a lot of G-forces that goes on your body. That would probably help with my tolerance, building my tolerance for something, this type of training that astronauts go through, which is called the centrifuge.
Being a woman in what has traditionally been a male-dominated space has come with its challenges. The US military employs 1,700 female pilots, and women make up 8.1% of those positions, while only 11% of the world's astronauts are women.
There have been times in my career where I had to overcome stereotypes and biases, gender roles, not by a lot of people, but by some people. That, are you going to be able to handle it? Or, for instance, there was this one time I was, it's a public air show, so the public is allowed to give their opinion, I suppose. So, I was a marshaller in training. We just had to watch over the aircraft and stuff and make sure nothing happens during the air show. So then after it's over, one of the vendors comes and tells us, the public was so surprised that there are 2 women on the ramp marshalling these, huge World War II bombers. And we looked so surprised. I was like, what? This is 2024, so why is it so surprising? And she said, people were even saying, are they allowed up there on the ramp? And I was like, I was taken aback. So, just subtle things like that, subtle comments like that, I've gotten a lot.
The path to becoming an astronaut for NASA is no easy feat. You must be a US citizen and have a master's degree in a STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or have equivalent experience. You need at least 2 years of professional experience or 1,000 hours of flying a jet plane. You must pass a physical examination for long-duration space flights, have a doctoral or medical degree, or completing a test pilot school program can also boost your chances of becoming selected as an astronaut for NASA.
A light bulb just went off and I'm like, hey, I'm here. And this is literally the place where everything started with space. So let's try to see what I can do. But of course, space opportunities are very limited here if you're not a citizen.
In Neharika's case, eventually her hard work paid off. She took the first step to become accepted into a NASA program where she would spend the next few years training to become an astronaut.
When I joined the academy, so many smarter, brighter kids, doing all these, fancy degrees. Oh my God, how am I gonna, fit in? I'm having really bad imposter syndrome right now. But actually, I learned that it's okay to feel that way, because if you feel that way, you're doing something right. Because then you get to contribute your own unique knowledge and your own unique experience, and that's what the space industry is all about, is your uniqueness and what you bring to the table.
During the early days of the space program, women served as human computers, a job involving complex maths calculations. All of NASA's human computers were women, and many of them were African-American. The Soviet Union was the first to send a woman to space in 1963, but it wasn't until 20 years later that NASA sent its first American woman into space. Women have gone on to set many records for spacewalks and long-duration space flights on the ISS, International Space Station. As of 2024, at least 75 women have flown to space. NASA says it's aiming to break down barriers that shut women out of space programs. And in 2026, they aim to land the first woman on the moon.
So for NASA, there's so many different ways to join now. There's internships, there's pathways for students. You can even go in as a high schooler and volunteer. So there's so many different programs. People think of NASA and they think of space, but NASA does so much more than space. They do earth sciences, they do, you wouldn't even think, but they do things that actually help not just the space industry, but also they can patent those ideas and you can use it in daily life, So yeah, I would say it's different now. It's more if you are a young person and you don't, if you want to learn, they don't expect you to know everything. You could go in and they will teach. It just depends on the program. The program that I was in, they taught us everything from scratch. We went with ground zero knowledge, and then we came out and we were able to write a whole proposal of whatever technology that we tried to come up with. We wrote a whole proposal so we could present it to NASA and they could fund us money to go ahead and do research. So yeah, I would say there's a lot out there.
As Neharika continued to build upon her dreams at NASA, everything came to a screeching halt when she was diagnosed with Bell's palsy, a temporary paralysis of the facial muscles on one side of the face.
I woke up one morning and the right side of my body decided to be oh, you know what, let's just stop working. My face drooped, and then for some odd reason, it shouldn't happen, it should only be limited to your face, but for some odd reason I lost my balance as well. So the entire right side of my face was paralyzed, and it happened again in 2024. I was in physical therapy for over a year because they tried to get me strong enough so I could walk without a cane. And I was I am absolutely not letting this thing hinder me, because I really want, because when you're an astronaut or a pilot, they're very strict. They don't want you to have any type of conditions. Or if you do, it needs to be well controlled, So I was I'm absolutely not letting this thing stop me. So I was in there for a year, and then last year, finally in June, I let go of my cane, and that was like, the best feeling ever, like being able to walk on your own without a cane. So yeah, it was kind of like a mystery thing, but then it went away. So I'm just happy that it didn't happen again. No one really knows about that condition because it's so weird and sudden. It looks like a stroke, and that's why they thought I was having a stroke at first, but it wasn't. Some people recover in 3 months, some in 3 weeks, some not ever.
Neharika encountered major health challenges in the space of 3 years. Alongside having PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, and being anemic, she was also having to battle an arteriovenous malformation, which is an abnormal tangle of blood vessels that causes problems with the connections between your arteries and veins.
Like a ticking time bomb in your body. Basically, there's nothing to do. For some people, they get radiation and surgery, but it just basically depends. For me personally, I have it in my lungs. And because it is so rare, it is not researched, let alone on Earth. We don't even know how it would affect an astronaut if they're in space. And sometimes most of these are found incidentally, like mine was incidental. I didn't even know. And you're usually born with it. So basically that is where my interest came in researching. And maybe I would be able to help not only astronauts in general, but just, general public, and just create awareness on this very rare condition.
Determined to reach new heights and push her limits, Neharika made history, becoming Fiji's first analog astronaut after completing her first space simulation in Poland.
So an analog astronaut is like someone who participates in human spaceflight training or a simulation of some sort that replicates the living conditions in space, or you could say the IISS, because that's where astronauts of all different countries eventually the space programs go and live together. So super proud that I was able to represent Fiji and even the Pacific. I see so many moms and dads messaging me and be like, my daughter wanted to be an astronaut. I watched Hidden Figures with my daughter, and now we have someone of our own to look up to, and it's just it gives us hope. And that's a really special feeling for sure, and a very emotional feeling as well. I was paired up with 2 other Polish girls. We didn't know each other, and that's just usually how it is. We spent 7 days in complete isolation, no sunlight. The inside of the environment looked exactly like the ISS. There was very low water pressure. We could not take showers. We just had to use baby wipes. The food was very similar to the food in space. So everything vacuum packaged or very specific things that you can make. It was interesting to see how our body reacted to no sunlight and just being with each other in a confined space 24/7. It actually feels very different. Your body reacts so differently. So you would be exposed to a lot of radiation. There was some radiation in our environment to simulate that high carbon dioxide levels within the environment. It gives you a headache and, you get nauseous and stuff. And then not being able to shower especially since you're a girl, it does take a toll on your, how you feel. But then as the days go by, you stop caring about all this stuff. We actually started to enjoy it so much that we didn't want to come out of the place. We actually liked it because it was actually really good for our mental health, being disconnected from the world and just doing our own thing. There was also a period where we were in complete blackout for I think 2 days or 3 days, where we turned all the lights, only the necessary things were on. All the lights were off and we lived in complete darkness. Did all our tests in the dark. We had a medical officer, I was an astrobiologist, and then we had an electrical engineer on board. So the medical officer's responsibilities was, doing medical tests on us and making sure throughout the day. And this was that was our only job, doing medical tests and writing down data. But then our blood sugar was so low and it was so weird. And we felt fine though. My blood pressure was really high. getting higher every day, but I felt fine. Not having the resources that we have on Earth, like, you can't do your skincare like you would if you're a girl, or your makeup. But actually what we found was that our skin was actually so much better without any of that. And then it kind of got us thinking, like, are we using too much unnecessary stuff on our skin, or are we just letting it breathe and heal on its own? And then, eating the foods, like, that was a totally different experience, because for me personally, I was very weak when I got out of the mission. I had to come home in a wheelchair. I had to fly. I flew all the way from Poland back to the States on a wheelchair the entire way. So, and I guess that's how most even when you look at astronauts and they come back from space, they have to be carried out of their capsule because they absolutely have no muscle mass. And even if you are an astronaut, the more time you spend in space, that is one of the biggest challenges, is keeping your mental and your physical health. So yes, we did some cool things, cooking in the dark. And when you turn the tap on, so if you flush the toilet, you can't use the tap. The water will not come. Very limited water pressure. And likewise, if you just open the sink just to wash one plate, the water pressure would fall in the toilet. So, they're both, my colleagues were both from Poland, so they don't know what it's like. But back home, when we don't have water, we as Pacific Islanders know that, we just put a bowl of water and then we just slowly wash our hands like that. But that's something that they wouldn't know. And then that's where it got really fascinating, because different people, different experiences. And then I kind of had to guide them, like, if you wash the dishes this way, you're going to conserve water. And then they were like, we wouldn't ever know that because we always have water here, So that was a pretty interesting experience. And that's why it's really important to have a diverse group of astronauts.
For the simulation to work, they each had an important role to play. In order to function like a well-oiled machine, they completed rigorous testing and monitored their health, because in space, it's a matter of life and death.
I was very weak when I got out of the mission. I had to come home in a wheelchair. When you look at astronauts and they come back from space, they have to be carried out of their capsule because they absolutely have no muscle mass. And even if you are an astronaut, the more time you spend in space, that is one of the biggest challenges, is keeping your mental and your physical health.
She's now in the process of completing her studies and aspires to become a commercial astronaut and acrobatic airshow pilot.
My 5-year goal is completing my master's and my PhD. I do want to get a PhD in computational neurology, because I am very interested in researching the study of vascular malformations, which is something that I personally have. I kind of want to study how that would affect a female astronaut. We don't really know how that performs in zero gravity, and how would it be for a female astronaut, especially when she's on, having her monthly cycles. So I would really like to research that. And so that is my goal. And my other goal is getting a commercial space flight. So this time I'm not in a simulation, but this time I actually plan to go up to space if I can. That's my 5-year goal.
She wants others to know that no dream is too big. She says life's challenges only make us stronger, shaping our character and giving us fuel for perseverance on our road to destiny.
Be hungry for your dreams. Don't let any circumstance or situation discourage you. The sky isn't the limit if there are footprints on the moon.
Thank you for listening to The News and You. Your support truly means the world. If this story impacted you in any way, would you consider sharing the love by giving The News and You a rating and review? I'd love to know, what are your key takeaways? I encourage you to share this with someone, because there's power in our stories. So why not send it to them right now? Until next time, remember, your story matters, and there's a shared truth behind everything.